Next part of the Maimer Ve'Hanif Yadai from Achron Shel Pesach Tafshin Yud Aleph. So based on what we learned earlier about the difference between food and drink, which is something that a person takes internally, it doesn't bring something new. It only strengthens a connection that's already there, that's already supposed to be there. Whereas smell is a connection of a person to the very essence of his soul. And in smell itself, there's a difference between the left nostril and the right nostril, that while the right nostril only reaches the level of chayin, life, which means we're bringing down and drawing down a new life from above. When a person's, for example, faints, then the smell brings down a new level of life. But then there's a deeper level, which when a person faints, and sometimes it doesn't even help the regular type of smell, but he needs specifically a smell of something that has a very sharp smell, because he needs to reach not just life, but he needs to renew the whole essence of life in the thing itself. And that's why the right side reaches the level of Atik, which is from above, whereas the right side reaches the level of Atik, which is from above, whereas the left side reaches the level of Primus Atik, which is that below itself, the world itself, a place where there is concealment. We reach something which is totally beyond any type of understanding, the very essence of what everything is all about. We continued to explain yesterday that this concept is not just the essence that's above the world, but this essence actually affects even the intellectual capacity of the person. And as we see that when a person understands something, he's understanding from the level of intellect, whereas when he can't understand, so he needs to reach the level of ratzin, his desire, his will to understand, which causes him the ability to understand. But sometimes there's a blockage, and the way to reach a totally new idea is through Tainuk, simple Kabbalah soil, doing it, studying and understanding with Kabbalah soil, but that affects that the understanding can be renewed fully. Now, based on this, the Rebbe explains, this is why we say by Mashiach, that Mashiach is the concept of reach, of smell. What does it mean, Mashiach is a concept of smell? Mashiach judges based on smell. Something that's usually done based on understanding. Something that's usually done based on hearing and seeing. Mashiach does it based on smell. Which means that these same ideas of Ruach Chachma and Bina, Eitzah and Gvura, the spirit of knowledge and understanding, the spirit of advice, the spirit of strength, something which is internal, something that comes down into the world. With Mashiach it comes in a way of Vaharichai, of smell. Meaning that Mashiach reaches the very essence of creation, and brings down the very essence of godliness. Something that now we can only perceive through understanding, and therefore we're not really perceiving the essence itself, we're only perceiving what we can understand. You can understand something, that's as far as you can go. When Mashiach comes, Mashiach's point is going to be to bring the very essence of godliness, and that very essence of godliness is going to become into the world and be internalized into the world, just like understanding can be internalized. And that's why his judgment will be one that's based on smell. This smell is not just that he will have the idea of smell, but that the smell will actually affect the judgment, the internal ideas that from above, from the very essence, is going to come down into what's able to be perceived in the world. And now the Rebbe continues to explain, that's why the Frierdiker Rebbe says in a Sikha, that when Mashiach's judgment will be different, the difference between Mashiach's judgment and regular judgment. When a person judges now, he judges based on what he can perceive. Mashiach is going to judge another person based on where that person themselves is, which means, just like when someone else judges me, he only sees what I did. He sees what he's able to connect to. When I, for example, judge myself, I'm judging myself based on also what brought me to what I did, because I know everything, all the cause that brought me to the place that I am. Mashiach is going to be able to see a person and recognize what brought him to his place. He's not just going to see the outer aspect of what the person does, but he's going to be able to also recognize that which brought the person to the place where he came to, just like the person himself can do it. And this is why, because Mashiach reaches the essence. When he reaches the essence, he's not just judging based on outer concepts, seeing, hearing, understanding. He's reaching the essence, and in the essence there's all the reasons and everything that brought it and everything that came to it. And here the Rebbe puts in a seemingly a side note, which is a very interesting point, but which perhaps also connects to the whole content of what the Rebbe is explaining here. And the Rebbe says the following, that people think that a sicha is something which is only simple things. A maimer is chassidus, that's the essence. A sicha, people think, is only simple things. But the Rebbe says in general, we know that even sichas chulin, shel talmidei chachamim tzricha limud, it says, aleyu lo yiboil, his branch will never dry up, which means his leaf will never dry up, meaning that a Talmud Chacham, someone who studies Torah, even his simple words also need to be learned. That's a regular Talmud Chacham. A Nasi Ader, you don't even need this drasha. It's obvious that everything he says is based on the depths of Kabbalah. And it's interesting because that concept is also the difference between the Maimer, which is more like the idea of what comes from above. That's like the right nostril. That's like the concepts that come from above, the depths of Chassidus. Whereas a Sikha of a Rebbe seemingly seems to be is just speaking about the idea, but that actually is that the world itself is perceiving. The concepts themselves are being perceived in the world. That is the essence of what Mashiach is, of Mashiach's teachings. That's the essence of how Mashiach relates to the world, that it's not just what is outwardly apparent, but rather the very essence also comes into what's outwardly apparent. And that's the idea of Mashiach's judgment. And the Rebbe continues to explain that this is the idea of Reach, smell, reaches the very essence. The essence of a person, we see that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, when he was about to pass away, he was crying, and his students asked him, why are you crying? And he says, there's two paths before me, and I don't know which path I'm going to be taken to, whether the path of good or the path of bad. And the question is, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai didn't stop learning Torah for a moment. It says he never went 4 cubits without Torah, without tefillin. How could such a person, he never stopped learning for a moment? And the answer that Chassidus gives is that the Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, sure, I know what I did outwardly. I know that my actions were good. I know that my thoughts were good. I know that everything outwardly, the aspects, the outer aspects were good. But where is my essence? Where is the essence of my soul? Perhaps that is not in the good place, and therefore my essence isn't where it belongs. And therefore now Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is saying, well, my actions I always took care of, but I never had time to think about the essence of my soul. And it's the same idea that we see that there was someone whose name was Rabbi Yochanan Kohen Gadol, and it says that Shimesh pei shanim b'kodesh v'achar kach nasa tzduki. For 80 years he went in year after year into the Kodesh HaKadoshim on Yom Kippur. He went into the Holy of Holies, a place where if someone wasn't worthy, he wouldn't manage, he wouldn't live, he would die on the spot. And yet he went in and he went out, which means he was good, which means his actions were good, which means his thought, everything about him was good. But his essence, the essence of his soul, because of something that he had done when he was younger. When he was younger, he listened, whether it was music or something of the like, which reaches the essence of the soul, which wasn't the way it should be. So it actually affected his essence. So his essence, all of those years were in the depths of Klippa. He lived. He didn't die in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. He was able to go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim because his actions were good. But his essence, the depths, the reality of what he was still in the depths of Klippa. And it's something that only came out later after 80 years. And that's the idea of when we say that smell reaches the essence. It's not something which can be perceived by the outer faculties, by the outer ideas of a person. It's the very essence of what the person is. And that's what Mashiach is. Mashiach is going to be revealing in the world. In him there'll be revealed the Pnimius Atik, the essence of godliness, the essence of his soul. And at the same time the connection with the very essence of Hashem, the Pnimius Atik. Something that's above the world. But that Pnimius Atik is going to come down into the world, into his manner of judgment, that even when he judges, even when he relates to the world, he's going to be able to bring that essence down into every physical thing. Is going to be revealed in the most powerful way. And now the Rebbe explains, based on how we understood the idea of smell that there is by Mashiach, what Mashiach's concept is, the essence is revealed. Now we can also understand why there's Ve'henif Yadei al Anar, why when Mashiach comes he'll split the river into 7 paths. What's the idea of the river? What's the idea and the concept of splitting the river? So we know that by Kriyas Yamsov, when Hashem split the Yamsov for the Jewish people when they were leaving Mitzrayim, it wasn't so that they can go to the other side, because as we know, they made a horseshoe turn, they made a U-turn in the Yamsuf. They went in one side, they came out right where they went in. There was a spiritual concept that was being brought out over here, and that is that before Matan Torah we know that the world was like a place that there were 2 separate domains. It's like the mashal, the analogy that the Medrash gives, that there was a king that said, B'nei Roima lo yerdu l'Surya, B'nei Surya lo yalu l'Roima. The people from Rome can't go down to Syria, the people from Syria can't go up to Rome. There's a border. There's a wall in between, like between Mexico and the United States. There's a wall. One can't go and go over that wall and go to the other place. The same thing is before Matan Torah. What happened before Matan Torah? Hashem created a world with Elyonim and Tachtainim. There's a higher world, there's a lower world. What does higher mean? What does lower mean? Is it space? This is in a place where there is no space. We're talking in spiritual ideas. There is no space over there. So what do we mean when we say higher and lower? Obviously, higher means spiritual that doesn't come to the physical, and physical is physical that doesn't go up to the spiritual. That's the whole definition of higher and lower. If they were together, if there was no borders, it wouldn't be higher, wouldn't be lower. So that's the way it was for the beginning of creation, for the beginning of the world, for 26 generations until the Torah was given. There was a separation, there was a wall. Even when the Avos did mitzvahs, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they didn't bring spirituality down into the physical world. Yaakov took the sticks, and he did mitzvahs with those sticks, and yet the sticks remain sticks. The sticks can go in the garbage. There's nothing holy about the sticks. He used it in order to draw down spirituality. Physical remained physical, spiritual remained spiritual. One could not go close to the other. Then there came Matan Torah. What happened by Matan Torah? Hashem says, okay, time to break this wall. Time to be able to draw down spirituality into the physical world and to elevate the physical world into the spiritual. Now when a person puts on tefillin, not only when a person puts on tefillin, when a person does with the tefillin, he prepares them to do a mitzvah with them. They already become holy. The tefillin become holy. The holiness, the spiritual holiness came into the tefillin were elevated to holiness. Even when a person eats to do a mitzvah, the food now became food that's there for a mitzvah. He elevated the food. That's the whole idea, that even something which is used for a mitzvah, even when he's not actually doing a mitzvah with it, like the Mittler Rebbe explains that already, that in itself the Kedusha comes and sets into it. In order to have that, there needed to be the getting rid of this wall and this interruption and this blockage between higher and lower. This is what happened by Matan Torah. In order to get there, there needed to be Kriyas Yamsuf. What's Yamsuf? The sea that shows on Malchus, that conceals, that hides over all the spiritual lights. It's hidden inside it. That's the sea. Dry land, is a place where the spiritual lights aren't revealed at all, where there is no spiritual lights. That's why it's dry land, that's the physical world. To go in the sea, in the dry land, means to go in the spiritual worlds, but where they're revealed in this physical. That was the preparation for Matan Torah, and there's two opinions from the Rizal and the Zayar, whether the spiritual was brought up into the physical, or the physical was brought up into the spiritual, or the spiritual was brought down into the physical. But regardless, that was the preparation by Matan Torah, that the world and godliness can now be connected. That came through Kriyas Yamsuf. Now, as a preparation for the coming of Mashiach, when we're going to bring down the very essence that's above the world, not just the spiritual light into the world, but here it's to bring and to reveal the essence into the world. For that, there is going to have to be again the splitting of the river, which the river is even higher than the sea. It's the Chachma, it's the essence which is above the world, in order to bring the essence down, also in both ways, bringing the essence of godliness down into the world, and bringing the physical world up into the essence of godliness. And this is why we say that if for that there comes the idea of Mashiach, who brings the essence, who reveals the essence in the world. And this is also why we say that Mashiach is going to bring the tzaddikim to do tshuva. But Mitzvah Hashem will continue that idea tomorrow, and we will go on as well with the next Maimer. We'll start the next Maimer of Machar Chodesh. Today is out of Rosh Chodesh, tomorrow will be Rosh Chodesh, the first day of Rosh Chodesh. So we'll finish the last point of this Maimer, go on to the Hemshech. The next Maimer is a Hemshech to this Maimer. We'll do that in Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow.